This is not going to be a very good show tonight. And I think you should change the channel. This show used to be cutting-edge political and social satire, but it's gotten lobotomized. We're all being lobotomized by this country's most influential industry that's just thrown in the towel on any endeavor to do anything that doesn't include the courting of 12-year-old boys. And not even the smart 12-year-olds, the stupid ones, the idiots. Well, there's always been a struggle between art and commerce. I mean, now I'm telling you, art is getting its ass kicked. And it's making us mean, and it's making us bitchy. It's making us cheap punks. That's not who we are. People are having contests to see how much they can be like Donald Trump. We're eating worms for money. Who wants to screw my sister? Guys are getting killed in a war that's got theme music and a logo. That remote in your hand is a crack pipe. It's not even good pornography. They're just this side of snuff films. And friends, that's what's next, because that's all that's left. And the two things that make them scared gutless are the FCC and every psycho-religious cult that gets positively horny at the very mention of a boycott. All right, stand by VTR.
We're going to cut in early.
It's prissy, feckless, off the charts, greed-filled whorehouse. There it is. And you're watching this thoroughly unpatriotic. Go VTR now.
You're listening to TV Ate My Dinner. My name is Sean, and I am sitting here with Brooks and Greg.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
That's Brooks and Craig, everybody. Tonight we are going to talk about jumping the shark, which is not actually a literal term. We're talking about when shows tend to overstate or overstay the welcome of their mandate.
Or when they lose their direction and start reaching for ridiculous concepts. This, of course, is a well-known Happy Days episode. That's where this comes from, where Fonzie at some point gets on a motorcycle, Evel Knievel style, and jumps over a shark.
No, he's water skiing. He is water skiing.
He water skis over
in
a
his
shark.
leather jacket. And he is in his leather jacket the whole time. It is beyond retarded.
I guess that was a pivotal moment in the series when, even at that time in the 70s, whatever, everyone's like, yeah, this show is officially lost its way.
It's over.
There's no coming back from this. And
so much so that's where the term comes from.
Yeah, it's such a iconic, visual thing that Fonzie jumping a shark, how ridiculous that is. So when a show just completely loses its mind now, it's called jumping the shark. And I'm sure most of you know this, but for those of you who don't, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And I guess we got some examples lined up, right?
We have some examples, and we have some, I guess, some ideas about what constitutes a shark jump, as far as there
are some rules to it, and like that you can see in any show, and there are sometimes some shows like Happy Days found their own special unique way of doing it. A guy jumping a shark in a leather jacket is not a general rule.
Yeah, I can't think of any other examples of that particular shark jump.
In fact, in any other show, that might be considered awesome. That could save certain shows.
Well, I think they
if they did that in Grey's Anatomy, that might get my attention.
Well, they actually blew somebody up in Grey's Anatomy. So
them doctor shows is always doing weird stuff to people. That doesn't. Weren't you just telling us about ER? Like, had a guy get run over by a helicopter?
Oh,
or
ER
nonsense?
Jumped a shark. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, it's just nowadays it's just one crazy thing after another. But in my mind, really where ER officially jumped the shark is where Dr. Romano was killed by a helicopter falling on him. That story, this
happens all the time.
Well, the Romano had an interesting storyline in relation to helicopters anyway, because 2 seasons before he had a helicopter fall on him, he actually accidentally stepped into the rotor of a helicopter and lost one of his arms.
Of course.
Yes.
Happens all the time.
Right.
So this guy just needed a helicopter safety class more than anything
well, apparently
else.
he just had really bad luck with helicopters.
Good Lord, I've never even been in the presence of a helicopter once in my whole life.
Well,
it's starting to sound like
much
Final
less
Destination.
To get dismembered and destroyed by one on 2 separate occasions.
It was kind of a Final Destination kind of a thing, because he actually in the scene where the helicopter falls on him, he had worked up enough nerve to go up to the top of the building when the helicopter landed to drop somebody off. And he chickened out. As soon as the elevator opened, he saw the helicopter out there. He chickened out and he went downstairs to the ambulance bay and was kind of walking out there trying to get his head back together, and damned that the helicopter didn't fall on his head. So,
of course.
Well, you can't fight fate. That's what Taylor Dane said, man. You can run, but you can't run away.
These are the moments that you just can't imagine what the script writers were just sitting around a table going, oh, you know what'd be awesome? If the helicopter falls off the building and chops his head clean off.
I just got a totally awesome idea, guys.
You can almost hear the water skis as they're thinking that.
Oh,
water
yeah.
Skis in the back of their head.
You can see Richie powering up the boat.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to hear the water pipe while they're, hold on, I just thought of something totally awesome. It's going to turn this whole show around.
So anyway, that's my official
that was a good
point
one.
Where ER
I think
jumped
the ER
shark.
has the distinction of having jumped the shark at several different occasions.
Oh yeah, well see, they can do that because they change the cast, once every 2 or 3 years.
Well, that's why, it's not like Law and Order where the cast isn't really important because, the story is a story. It's a character-driven drama. And like every 5 years, you'll watch the show and like, who the hell are all these people? Isn't that the guy from Critters?
So are we saying by definition that you can return from a jumping the shark moment? Or is it by definition a point that there is no return?
I think you can survive a shark jumping moment, but I don't think that you ever really fully come back from one. I think
the show can continue. Happy Days continued. ER obviously continues, but I don't think you can continue with credibility.
Was the episode?
I think the story is gone at that point.
The episode of Happy Days that had Mork from Ork in it, was that after the shark jump? I'm guessing.
But you have to understand, back in those days,
wasn't?
Shows would be used to pilot each other.
So that is not considered a jumping the shark moment. It's the actual shark jump. Because I consider that
it's sort of like when the Dukes of Hazzard met an alien, right?
Lil Cousin.
They had like an alien encounter on the Dukes of Hazzard. That wasn't a shark jump because that show was ridiculous. But when they lost, Bo and Luke and brought in like Cousin Cody and whoever, that was bad. That was jumping the shark.
That was my favorite because they looked just like those two guys. Like two cousins that happen to look just like these two guys and happen to drive the car the same way.
Oh, that would be Coy and Vance Duke.
Coy and Pant.
Nerd alert.
What makes that even sadder is that when you bring in two guys who make the first two guys look like first class thespians.
Yeah.
when people are like, man, Coy and Vance they just don't have it like Bo and Luke.
Well, you know why Coy and Vance showed up, right?
This guy's no Tom Wopat.
The reason why Coy and Vance showed up is because Tom Wopat and John Snyder wanted more money.
Well, exactly. And back in those days, if you wanted more money, you were gone. So. And they'd make the show for another year, and then the show would be gone because they should have given you more money.
It's like Three's Company did that with a different Chrissy.
Hey, man, they did that. Well, she wasn't a different Chrissy. She just gave her a different name, but obviously,
she was practically a different Chrissy.
What was her name?
Her name was like Terry or something, I think.
Well, it
wasn't Terry.
Well, Terry was the third one, but then there was a middle one. Who was that?
I'm thinking of Priscilla Barnes.
That was Terry. She was the one. She was the third.
There was another one?
Blonde roommate.
There were 3 blondes on that show?
Chrissy and then Kimmy or something.
Oh, I guess I missed that. Well, that show
was played by Jenny Lee Harrison. I think she was only on for a season.
Man, you know your TV.
Well, I know it scares me sometimes. It really does. But
wow,
it really is.
She was also in Tank. She was the girl in Tank. If you remember that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What is Tank?
I actually do know that. Oh, of course, Tank. Why didn't you say so in the first place?
Just for just so we're playing by the rules here. I actually have the Jump the Shark website up so we can kind of verify our opinions to the actual website.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, we'll give credit to them where credit is due.
Another good Coy and Vance moment also happened with Chips.
Oh yes,
they lost Eric Estrada and they brought in like 2 like dirt biker guys or something.
Really?
I don't remember
this at all.
I don't remember that. I remember where they lost John. That John went away, and then they brought in this kid that was supposed to be like the cop in training, and Eric Estrada was teaching him how to be a chip.
I don't remember that. I just remember Eric Estrada to this day will say how he was blacklisted in Hollywood because of his strong opinions and not because of his lack of talent.
Yeah, well, all right.
As is more commonly believed.
It seems like so far all of our Jump the Sharks we've mentioned are from the 70s. Is that just
because we went with the classics? I feel like we jumped in because I actually wanted to talk about a couple other things before we get deep into the Jump.
Let's do that then.
Well, let me just say right quick that out of 3,000 votes, Dr. Romano having the helicopter dumped on him, he got 724 votes is where ER jumped the shark.
Well, that's cool that someone's keeping track of this for taking her easy for all of us sinners.
724 votes for Dr. Romano's death, 562 votes for when he got his arm chopped off.
That's funny. If those people were out at that point, man, they would have been flipping their lids at the other episode then when they're like, this is too much. And then 2 years later, they just drop a helicopter on him like, oh, yeah? Is that too much, jackass?
1,400.
Still got an opinion about things?
1,400 votes for when Dr. Ross left, that was George Clooney's character, and he left,
I tend to think that's not a jumping of the shark, but sometimes something happens on a show that just signifies that they shouldn't continue.
Yeah, that's when the leak started.
Well, ER should definitely not continue. I mean, they don't have an original cast member left.
I'm astounded and somewhat appalled that show is still on. I'm like, man, there must be. I mean, I want to hear the pitches because it must be a dry well out there in Hollywood.
Especially when
for them to continue with ER.
Especially when good shows like Studio 60 get knocked off. I mean, I think the 10 o'clock and Thursday slot would have been perfect.
That is such a good point because I just bought the Studio 60 DVD, which you can go out there and get, people. So please, for the love of God, if you haven't seen the show, at the very least, Netflix it. Because you're missing out.
At least let them know what kind of mistake they made because it was a really awesome show that died a very early.
It was
death.
A landmark kind of show. And it was so sad and ironic because it's a show talking about how television should be and talking about where the quality of television should be and the direction of it should be headed. And the show, nobody watched it and they didn't, and it lasts and now it's over. It's so sad. It's like we proved the thesis of the show by not supporting it.
Well, they should be happy then.
The show, I guess, yeah.
We have been vilified.
Spend millions and millions of dollars to prove a point and get nothing for my trouble. But I guess they got a DVD box set. But that show inspires me. I find it inspired and inspiring. It really hits me because I am a lover of storytelling and film and television, and I'm a big believer in it. I feel like it's faith because you haven't seen it backed up yet. And I feel like that was the point of the show too with Aaron Sorkin. It comes from love to make that strong, an indictment of the way something is headed. It means that you really are passionate about where you believe it should be headed. So I think, at the very least, watch the show. And DVD affords you that opportunity.
I totally agree. And it sounds like we just think the show is like the greatest show ever. And in a lot of ways, and to me, it was the greatest show ever. It was about a show about what I wanted to be when I started out working in media and that sort of thing. I wanted to be what these guys were. And I guess that's why I identified with it so much and really enjoyed watching it because I wanted to be a producer of a national show or a movie or something like that and be able to take those kind of stands. I think,
Yeah, and they're still crusading for the elevation of their art and they're crusading for principles. It's not just about entertainment. It's about how entertainment can influence the world and society and be positive in that. The real concept of satire that we're sort of lacking.
Not to kill it
in our entertainment.
Not to kill the buzz here, but Studio 60 does have a Jump the Shark page.
Really? Yeah, a show that was on for one season, Jump the Shark?
Well,
that may be a little... I think the shows that are short-lived, I think I love them better because they don't get a chance to jump the shark.
Well, actually...
Like Firefly, 12 episodes, and the show is done. You're wanting more. But at the same time, it never got a chance to ruin it.
Actually, the page says that out of about 600 votes, 415 said it never jumped.
Well, yeah, it was on for 22 episodes. Where's the shark?
Some people...
What are we even talking about?
84 votes went to when Danny and Jordan got locked out on the roof, and I'll give them that one because that's such a cliche,
But I mean, they did that on purpose because it was
a cliche. I got it, but
the show was poking at cliche.
I got it, but I can see how some viewers might not.
you also have to understand that there was a certain point in time during the production of the show where they realized that one season was all they were going to get. They had to step it up to finish the story, which they did. So there are some things that may have been developed a little bit more elaborately if the show were succeeding. But instead, they really soldiered up and made sure that they told the story they meant to tell in the limited amount of time that they had. And of course, there was an episode where they locked on the roof. But come on, they were in that same episode.
Actually, it was a two-parter.
That their arc was there were wild animals running loose in the studio. I mean, it was a lampoon. The whole episode was the lampoon of television cliche. It was and well done.
Anyway, folks, if you have any feelings about the state of television in America today, go watch this series because.
Even the entertainment industry, politics, he covers it all.
Yeah.
It's a model of the world.
What if my feelings that there's not enough naked chicks on television? Well, does this address that? Because that's my feeling.
I don't believe so. Although maybe you should listen to the speech at the very beginning of the pilot. It might cover what you're asking. On a lighter, I guess, note, I went to the theater to see the Darjeeling Limited this weekend.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there anymore.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up seeing Dan in Real Life, the new Steve Carell movie.
Was it good?
Very good. I enjoyed it a lot. Extremely funny. I think he has a sensibility that really hits you. Like, he's very funny, but he's also very likable. And the movie is about that.
I think that movie, I wanted to go see that movie and haven't. And I guess that's probably...
I would recommend it heartily. Like, especially if you like stuff like Little Miss Sunshine, something that's independent but entertaining. I think that's a good movie to go see. It's
sounding like it's going to be a failure though in the box office.
Well, it's an independent. How much money does a movie like that cost?
Well, I don't know, but they're saying that it's not doing very well, but mainly I guess maybe because it's going up against some bigger movies. But it looked like a really good movie, and I'll definitely Netflix it when it comes in.
Who knows? That movie is going to probably be more successful on DVD because it's the kind of movie that is.
Most comedies are, I think.
Evan Almighty didn't perform very well in the theater, but it didn't look very good, So I'd rather see him do stuff like Dan in Real Life, which is smaller and more personal. Although very similar in plot to a movie called The Family Stone, which is okay, but I didn't like it very much. But this one takes a similar concept. It's about a big family, bigger than people like us kind of understand, and relationships and such. Good movie though.
I finally saw Knocked Up.
That's funny.
It's all right.
Did you think so?
Yeah, I mean it had funny moments, but I guess there were lots of parts that just kind of went on and on. I think that the DVD says at the beginning that it has additional footage. It's like this movie is different from the...
Yeah, I haven't seen the DVD. Sometimes that's bad.
Let me get on a rant. I know our fan base doesn't like it when we rant too much, but that's kind of one of the...
Yeah, they tell us all the time.
I know, all of our thousands of fans. But they tell us that they don't like it when we get mad. But anyway, I don't like it when they have extended scenes in a movie and you can't get the theatrical version, because a lot of times there's a reason why they cut those scenes down, that they dragged a bit, that type of thing.
I agree with that. I would rather see like a special edition that had both versions, because you can buy the theatrical version of Knocked Up for cheaper. But I'm curious about those scenes. But why can't you just get like a 2-disc set that's got them
exactly?
I have a different pet peeve that's not related to this, but it does happen in Knocked Up.
We should do a show movie pet peeves. But go ahead.
Man, this one drives me crazy. There's a scene in the trailer that I remember very distinctly where they're sitting in the restaurant and she's telling him, "I'm pregnant," and he goes, "You're pregnant and you're hitting on me? What's wrong with you?" or something like that. That's not how it plays out in the movie. It's a completely different scene. I'm like, why do you shoot something for the trailer and then show a different scene?
I will give them this, though. There's a good reason for this, and it's because they shoot the movie and they got to promote it, and sometimes footage goes off to these trailer editors that are not the filmmakers, and they take what they think are the funniest clips to make a trailer, and they make a trailer. And sometimes in the final cut, they either go with a different take or they cut a scene altogether. It's not. It's because you have to start promoting a movie so much earlier then you actually have it finished. It's not really their fault.
It kind of seems like false advertising a little bit.
I don't like it like in trailers where they show stuff that is clearly indicates pivotal plot points.
Oh, where they ruin the surprise.
Like I remember talking to a guy, we were working on a movie with a guy, and his biggest complaint was they shouldn't be allowed to show third act scenes in the trailer. Like nothing from the final act of the film. Nothing near the end of the movie. Because that way there would be no question. Like, obviously that's the most dramatic stuff you want to show in the trailer, but you don't want to show the whole story. And that's what you do if you start showing, like, I mean, literally, Ocean's 13, the last line of the film is in the trailer. Mm-hmm. Great movie. But that's true. The last line of the film is in the trailer. Loser? I think that happened in that one too. It happens all the time because it's a good moment, the last line of a film. Of course it would be a nice way to cap off a trailer, but come on. Do I want to see the end of the movie?
In the olden days, if you watch trailers on DVDs from movies like Maltese Falcon or something like that, Casablanca, they give away the entire story. I mean, without question, they tell the entire story in the trailer. It's like a 2-minute long trailer back then. And they're like, and then she meets a man and falls in love, but then he leaves her. Then she tracks him down. Like, they tell the whole thing. I don't know. Why would anyone watch those? At least it's not that bad.
I saw Planet Terror, and I saw the Machete trailer.
That is awesome.
And it is so 70s, because that's the way they were back then, too, where it's just like the entire story. In this, because it's a fake trailer, they're making a whole movie, but it's just like a trailer from the 70s.
You know, Brooks, I listened to that episode, and even though that movie... it doesn't sound like it's my cup of tea at all. I think I'm going to have to go watch it because you sold it so well.
Oh, you should. I so wholeheartedly agree with Brooks on that. That is a totally awesome movie. And they never let up. And it's not even set in the 70s. The movie's set in modern time, but they shoot it like a 70s exploitation film. And that's the important part. And it is awesome. Josh Brolin, man, he's really coming along. He looks just like his dad with a beard.
Yeah, I hear he's done a great performance in this new Coen Brothers movie, this No Country for Old Men. I think it
speaks well for him that he's in it. I really want to see it, but it hasn't come here yet. And the Darjeeling Limited was here for 2 weeks, so I didn't get to see it, which might be a good thing.
But anyway, we were talking about shark jumping, so let's get back to shark jumping.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Okay, well, we covered Happy Days, which is the mother of all shark jumping. And we covered Dukes of Hazzard and Chips, which are pretty cliched, shark jumping too. But this happens to this day. Like, I can think of shows from the 80s, from the 70s, and I can think of shows from just a couple of years ago. Like, I can think of shows that just went off the air that have jumped the shark.
Oh, I definitely can too. We were talking about West Wing earlier. I can remember, even though the show was a good show all the way to the end, I mean, it definitely jumped the shark. About in the 4th season, I think, where Leo has a heart attack. There's one where
well, that's where I'm actually watching it on Netflix right now on DVD, and I just got to that, and that is where the point of the show where it's starting to leave. After Aaron Sorkin left, which is right before the beginning of the 6th season, I think, or might have been right after the beginning of the 5th season, the show started getting, the writing was still good, but they started getting overly dramatic. And they keep coming up with these dramatic arcs, which is what people do when they can't think of real stuff to do.
On the Jump the Shark website, they have a list of standard shark jumping moments. And one of them is a very special...
A Blossom.
Blossom, yeah, that comes to mind.
What I talk about, now a very special episode of Blossom. Or something like that, and actually, that Leo having the heart attack is one of the big vote getters here. And it's called a very special Isaac and Ishmael which is the name of that particular episode. 606 votes.
Well, that wasn't the heart attack episode. That was actually much earlier.
Was it?
After 9/11, they did an episode that was outside of the West Wing.
That's right. You're right.
Which was where they just did a thesis on the basically the history of Jews versus Muslims in the Middle East and where that came from. And it was like a tutorial by the cast of it. And it was well written. It was. But they preface it at the beginning with the statement that it doesn't follow the storyline of the West Wing. And it was like the season premiere of one year because it was just after 9/11. They felt like they had to have a break to explain modern events, because obviously for a topical show they couldn't talk about 9/11.
That's second on the list of shark jumps for the West Wing. Number one being exit stage left, Sorkin and Schlamy, who were the well, of course.
Oh yeah, you can tell it's a good show afterwards. They left it in decent hands, but it's like when you have a creator that's that involved, because this leads to another thing I'm going to talk about, which is Buffy had to jump the shark moment. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a great show for 5 seasons, for the first 5 seasons, which follows another rule I have, that any show that lasts more than 5 years jumps the shark automatically. Because 5 years is the lifespan of a good TV show.
You think so?
With some exceptions. There are some exceptions.
Okay.
But with Buffy's a perfect example, because they ended their run with the WB after 5 years, then went to UPN after that, which was bad. And then after 5 years, Anthony Stewart Head, who plays Giles, his contract was up and he left the show, and it really was hurting after he left. And Joss Whedon left the show to make Firefly, and that was where they really felt it, because the only thing that was worthwhile in season 6 of Buffy at all was the musical episode, and that's because Joss Whedon came back and did that.
I didn't know that Joss Whedon never left Buffy. I thought he was there the whole time. I'm not a big Buffy fan. He
was not really around because he was making Firefly. And he sort of came back in season 7 because that was the final season, but by then they were just kind of phoning it in even then. But season 7 was better than season 6. Season 6 was a disaster. And season 7 was just basically an apology for season 6, but it didn't make up the difference. The first 5 seasons of that show were pretty solid.
The biggest vote getter for really Buffy is the death of a character named Tara. I'm not...
that happened in season 6.
Really?
Well, there you go.
I wouldn't call that the jumping of the shark. I think the Buffy and Spike relationship probably was the ultimate jumping of the shark, which also happened in season 6. All the worst things in Buffy happened in season 6. And that includes season 4, where she was fighting some G.I. Joe style initiative who was fighting monsters, and the main villain was like some commando Frankenstein monster.
Yikes.
That was still better than season 6. By far.
Well, the vote getters for Buffy are death of Tara, the new kid in town named Dawn, the musical.
That was season 5.
And 498. What?
They thought the musical was a jumping of the shark?
858 votes for the musical saying they jumped the shark. I think
conceptually, having not seen the episode and not being a big Buffy fan, I can see just conceptually how a musical version of any episode could be a jumping the shark moment.
Yeah, me too. Having not watched the show. It breaks from the
reality.
What made it clever, though, is one of the things that Joss Whedon wanted to do with the musical episode was he wanted it to not stray from the continuity. So there is a reason in the story that they're singing. And it wraps up and deals with actual story arcs that are happening. Like, it's not just an aside episode. There's like an enchantment that makes everybody sing what they think. And that's the plot line.
That's actually kind of funny.
And then it does work really well in a funny way. And another thing that makes it really endearing is that Joss Whedon really does write the music and lyrics for all of those songs.
Take my hand, take my blade.
Yeah, he writes that song also.
You can't take the sky from me. That's the only song of his I know.
You don't know that one. That's not the right words.
Well, I'm sorry that I don't know the lyrics, Greg. If I did, that would be a nerd alert.
I know every word. That's the best.
Nerd alert. Nerd alert.
Oh well, nerd alert for me then, because I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Take me out to the black. Tell 'em I ain't coming back. Burn the land, boil the sea. You can't take the sky from me.
Let's see if people think Firefly jumped the shark. Huh?
What else you got, Sean, while he's looking that up? Hit me with a show that I've heard of.
All right.
I've heard of these shows, but I don't watch them.
Okay, A-Team had a jump the shark moment. You know the A-Team.
Now, how can A-Team have a jump the shark moment when A-Team was ridiculous from the start?
Oh, when Robert Vaughn showed up.
Thank you. Exactly. When I wrote down the A-Team, all I wrote was Robert Vaughn.
Yep. All right, now
what's the jump the shark?
I don't know if I've seen this one. What is this?
All right, you've seen the A-Team.
Now I'm talking about this episode.
the premise of this is a whole new direction of the show. The premise of the A-Team is that they were like a bunch of special forces Green Beret type guys who were their own team, and they got accused of a crime they didn't commit and therefore had to become super secret mercenaries who went around stopping motorcycle hoods from strong-arming guys who own drugstores or something.
Just for reporting purposes,
$10,000 a pop.
Just for reporting purposes, 1,895 votes saying that the show never jumped. Firefly.
Firefly was only on for 12 episodes, people. That didn't jump.
No.
It didn't even pop.
They're saying that it didn't jump. There's only about
a show that wasn't
150
even on for a
people
full
who said
season.
that it jumped, and one of the criticisms, 18 votes, said there was too many characters, which I don't think that's true at all.
No, that's not true at all. And in fact, the show was originally conceptualized to have about 5 or 6 characters, and eventually he rounded the cast out to 9 because he realized he needed more. Yeah. He's an ensemble character writer. I mean, without an ensemble, every show he's ever written didn't get strong until he had a strong ensemble.
Anyway, back to the A-Team.
And that's true of Buffy and Angel. But people, a show that isn't even on for a full season can't by nature jump the shark or it'd be the worst show of all time.
Unless it just jumped the shark from day one. That's the only way.
Yeah, like after episode 3, it was all downhill. That's not a jumping of the shark. A show has to peak in order to decline. A show that hasn't even had a full season.
You were talking about the A-Team. Sorry, I didn't mean
in the A-Team. Yeah. In the A-Team, that's the premise, that they're being hunted by, and there's actually 2 different colonels throughout the show. It starts out like a guy named Decker, and then there's another guy who's chasing him later on. But eventually, they get caught, and Robert Vaughn from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. comes in as like this sort of like the guy from Team America. What is his name?
Oh,
the guy who runs.
Yeah, what's it?
He's the Jim Phelps
or something. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. But anyway, they bring in. He's like this guy who's like a super spy, and he turns them into like this spy squad sort of deal, and starts sending them in order to earn their pardons. He starts sending them out on missions. And that becomes the direction of the A-Team in the latter years.
Yeah, that's
possibly just the latter year.
That was the top vote getter for A-Team. There's only about 500 votes for that, but 371 of them are for it. They stopped running from the government and started working for them.
Yeah, that was bad.
A-Team is such a ridiculous show anyway. It's hard to imagine it reaching a point where people consider it jumping the shark. Just like I was with A-Team until this moment.
Well, the 80s had a lot of jump the shark moments. Well, when your suspension of disbelief is so stressed, well, already you've accepted so much. All right, I'll accept that one of the members of the team is crazy and lives in an insane asylum, and they never stake out the insane asylum.
And they have to bust him out every week.
Yeah, and no one ever is the wiser. It's like, man, I'd have no one would work at that place but secret agents if it were my watch. Because they can't find another pilot. He's so crazy they have to put him back in the nut house.
They should really take shooting lessons. Or maybe they're such awesome shots that they're able to shoot all around the bad guys without hitting anybody so that they never get pinned for murder.
That they just blow up the ground in front of you and you fly up and get knocked unconscious.
67 votes went to no one seems to die.
Yeah, ever. The Hulk has that same problem. He can throw people 40 feet in the air and they somehow land and just get them run.
That's every 80s show. That's not a moment. That's not a jump the shark because that's premise from the beginning.
I have a jump the shark moment that I remember from MacGyver, and I don't know if it may have jumped the shark before this moment, but there is an episode of MacGyver that has aliens as well, where
MacGyver was one of those shows
come down over this farm
at cutesy things. That's pretty bad. I think MacGyver jumped the shark when he started helping teen girls stop drinking rather than fighting spies.
144 votes for MacGyver, social worker.
Yep, there you go.
Because what happened was when MacGyver first came around, it was a smartly written show. And then when they lost their writers, they just started doing some kind of issue of the week, and it was horrible. And for some reason, people would capture MacGyver, and they would just tie him to a big bomb. And like, dude, it's MacGyver. Why are you going to tie him to a bomb and then leave? But, they never seem to understand what they're up against. It's like, it's MacGyver.
Actually,
why would you do that? Why would you put him in the bottom of a pit with a toothpick and a roll of duct tape? Just cause.
Always frisk him first.
Just shoot him. Like in Austin Powers. Yeah. You just shoot him right now.
Nobody speaks about the alien episode, but several people talk about.
How does no one mention that?
When Pete goes blind. Is that?
Yeah, that was really dumb.
Well, see, let me tell you two things. First of all,
the
Pete
Phoenix
goes blind
Foundation.
because Dana Elcar, the actor who plays Pete,
Mm-hmm.
actually did have a severe case of diabetes and began to develop glaucoma. And that is why that happened in the show. So there was a real life reason. I don't know why I know that, but
it doesn't matter. It was bad for ratings, okay?
But I think MacGyver jumped the shark when he went back in time to this time of King Arthur.
Yeah, that's
16
a good one.
votes.
That happened in an episode.
16 votes for that one.
How about the Holy Grail? Did that make the list?
I don't see it.
Because, oh my God, how did MacGyver just have so many poor moments? MacGyver had a lot of moments, and that was, I remember when he found the Holy Grail. That was lame. MacGyver jumped as an adventurer, jumped the shark for a living in the latter years.
The social worker
thing
was the top vote getter for MacGyver.
When did Alf
because
jump
that's when
the
the
shark?
show got unwatchable.
I'm sorry, say again?
When did Alf jump the shark?
Alf?
Episode 1.
Well, give me a minute. I'll find it.
I don't believe that Alf. I
think he jumped the shark when he started being on the Hollywood Squares or whatever.
I loved that. The resurgence of Alf.
90 votes for day 1.
There you go.
That's great.
What else you got, Sean?
Let's see. Buffy. Okay, Mork and Mindy. We mentioned Mork earlier, but Mork and Mindy jumped the shark. And a lot of shows do this. This is a good jump the shark rule, like the 5-year rule. Shows that just suddenly introduce a new character.
Yeah.
Usually have jumped the shark.
Yeah, they bring usually it's a kid. They bring in a new kid like the Cosby Show
well,
did.
In this
like
it's a
Family
kid
Ties,
too, but the kid.
all these shows.
Yeah, and that was bad in the Cosby Show too, when they start like, oh, that's so Raven.
Yeah.
When that show got that way. Well, they do that in Mork and Mindy too, but the kid is played by Jonathan Winters. Mork and Mindy's son, Mirth.
That's right. I remember that.
Is played by Jonathan Winters, and that's when he's the Scrappy Doo.
That's right. There you go. We should call it the Scrappy Doo moment.
And for people who think that are thinking right now, isn't Jonathan Winters like 80 years old? Well, back then he was 60 years old, and apparently people from Mork's planet age backwards. They start as an old person and then go down to a child.
Yeah, because they're hatched out of a gigantic egg, which looks just like Mork's spaceship. Yeah. Not that this show is ever good, but Star Trek Voyager had to jump the shark. And what'd they do? They introduced 7 of 9.
Oh, yeah.
Who was a Borg, supposedly, but all she really was like a supermodel in a leotard. That was the most embarrassing. Star Trek is always trying to save bad writing by just introducing good-looking women in no clothes.
Well, we could go on.
And strangely, in the case of Star Trek, it doesn't work.
We could go on forever about Star Trek, but
we could, man. That show over generations has jumped the shark in several. They've had whole franchises that were jump the shark moments.
Interesting though, 7 is
Enterprise was a jumping of the shark for the Star Trek franchise.
7 is not the top vote getter for that.
For Voyager?
Actually, day 1 is the top.
Well, yeah. Well, if you discount that, because like I said, it wasn't a good show to begin with.
But after that, it's wait a minute. No, 7 and 9 is second with 228
So introducing new characters to save a show. That's why some people said in Buffy it was the introduction of Dawn, which was a season 5 device. But yeah, when Buffy started getting older, they bring in another young girl to be the teenage kid. But I still think that worked because that played into the story. But in season 6, nothing worked. It's a complete breakdown of protocol.
Give me a 90s show rather than
Gilmore
Buffy.
Girls.
All right.
That's not even a 90s show. That's like a 2000s show.
I never watched that one.
Yeah, I actually have some testosterone in me, which apparently you do not. So
yeah, well, not your own.
Brooks, did you ever watch? Did you ever watch movies or watch any TV growing up?
I'm sorry. What now?
That was fully disgusting.
Did you ever watch any movies or TV growing up?
I just jumped the shark on our own show.
I watched a lot of TV growing up. It's just since then I haven't watched much.
Somehow you haven't seen Gilmore Girls.
I watched way too much Magnum PI.
Oh, Magnum PI jumped the shark when they had the Tiki God take over. And it was a Simon and Simon crossover episode.
I don't think I've seen that one.
This sounds great.
Yeah, there was a Simon. It was a Simon and Simon crossover episode, and the Simon and Simon guys. I forget their names. I never really watched that show.
The Simons.
Well, the Simons, yeah, but
those were their names.
They were coming after like this Hawaiian tiki god because it cursed all the people who owned it.
Awesome, fully Brady Bunch.
Yeah, and they had to return it back to the medicine man or something in order to break the curse. And but anyway, it got into Magnum's possession, and he kind of butted heads with the Simon and Simon guys. But then they eventually ended up becoming buddies, and they solved the mystery together. So. But I'd say that's probably.
I'm going to mention the Gilmore
there.
Girl thing because it plays to a convention of jumping the shark that I think is important, which all shows that begin with something inherent in the premise that cannot be realized jump the shark. Like the X-Files. When you start hinting at a story that you are never going to write about, sooner or later you're either going to jump the shark or peter out. And shows that have like a romantic involvement between two main characters that you never actually intend on following through on, that's a jump the shark waiting to happen.
Oh, that's the Joey and Rachel scenario in Friends.
That's on there. Joey
Ross
and Rachel is the jump the shark moment. Well, Ross and Rachel is the tragic thing. But
when they broke up and then got back together or whatever.
To me, in Friends, that's the same thing. When Ross and Rachel get together and break up in Friends, that really is the jump the shark. Because you never have that where you have two characters that are destined to get together and you finally get them together, and then they screwed it up because they didn't know where to write from there.
Moonlighting.
So Moonlighting. Moonlighting jumped the shark when they had the two of them get together. Yep. But for Friends, there are so many moments.
I don't think that Friends
by the time
really
they were
jumped
trying
the
to
shark.
hook up Rachel and Joey together.
Yeah,
that's where the show was just Lord.
I still thought it was funny up to the very end. There was no episode that I said this is.
It's not that it's not funny. It's like that's not the issue. It's that it's no longer credible. Friends was funny to the very end. When a show jumps the shark, it's not that all the writing falls off. It's that the premise has exceeded what it was designed to do. It is no longer believable. Like by the time Friends was over and they were all like in their 40s and they still live in the same apartment and they all still hang out with all the same people, I don't get that. We all live in different cities. We talk to each other. We're still friends, but we don't hang out with the same people we hung out with 10 years ago. None of the people I hang out with are people I hung out with 10 years ago. So I don't get that in general. But then when you Ross and Rachel are these two people destined to be together that have been friends side by side the whole time and can't make it work, that's in no way credible. And then in the meantime, they are all dating everybody in the group. They're all dating each other, but they're all still really close friends. Whatever, not gonna happen. And Gilmore Girls was like that too. They had Lorelai and Luke were like the big two that they were always trying to get together, and they do it. They get them together, and then they get engaged, and then right when things are going well, they break up. And then the next year is the last year of the show. So why not just hold out, do the show the way, keep the story up? What were you afraid of? Trying to drag things out another 5 years? Instead, they jumped the shark and the show was over anyway because people like me got sick of watching it.
So there.
Yeah. So suck on that, Gilmore Girls. You and your little quippy dialogue.
What else you got? What are some big ones? Did Cheers ever jump the
shark? You guys remember Airwolf? Remember when Airwolf got picked up by USA and they didn't even have Jan Michael Vincent in it anymore?
That was horrible.
And it had Barry Van Dyke. Barry Van Dyke is a good one because you know what else he came up with? I wasn't even mentioning this, but when Battlestar Galactica became Galactica 1980, it was Barry Van Dyke who showed up. He's like the cousin Oliver, man. It's like you bring him in and the show is over.
You know what was
who's that guy from that guy in Married with Children?
Ted McGinley,
who came in.
No,
the one from Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. Ted McGinley
as the neighbor's husband. He also came in at the tail end of Happy Days. He's considered the jump the shark guy.
Yeah, he actually has a special part here of the website. He is responsible for killing, let me see, Married with Children, Welcome Back Carter, The Love Boat, Till Death, Hope and Faith, Happy Days, Sports Night, Veronica's Closet, Land of the Lost, Lois and Clark, The Tony Danza Show, and about 20 others.
Really?
Yeah.
Good Lord. That guy's gotten around more than I thought.
The West Wing, he's on here.
I never really even liked him.
John Larroquette, Perfect Strangers. I mean, I guess he's been in all these shows.
That's awesome.
Perfect Strangers.
He's just like the kiss of death.
Did that jump the shark, or was it always
Perfect
it was already
Strangers?
over the
I
shark?
could say
from the
that
start?
show. If that show was worth like downing. I remember the Perfect Strangers started, and they lived in a crappy apartment building, and they worked in like an electronic store.
I thought he worked at a newspaper.
All of us. Well, see, that was later. Then one year when they wanted to do the premise, they just made him live in this really posh building, and they worked at a newspaper, and they had like these two hot blonde.
Oh, well, that's all I remember were the two blonde girls. I don't remember there being a show before that.
Oh, see, there was a Perfect Strangers before that.
Yeah, I don't remember the second apartment.
Before that, they just lived in a crappy apartment building, and cousin Larry had a crush on the one cute girl there. And then later on, they're like scoring with hot chicks left and right.
I don't remember the second apartment, the posh apartment. I do remember the crappy one.
Oh, well, you got to remember Reginald Vell Johnson coming in. It's like the elevator attendant,
Which there's only
who was also the sidekick in the original Die Hard.
Man, you guys know your TV.
The number one vote getter for that was When They Moved.
Exactly, because that's whenever you completely retool a show, it's a jumping of the shark.
On a related note, one day we need to do an episode with like the 10 worst catchphrases, because that "don't be ridiculous" has got to be on there.
You know what? I'm with you on this because I actually wanted to do a catchphrase show. We should just do general catchphrases and do best and worst.
Because oh my god!
Because actually, there's a lot of fodder
You mean
there.
like-
There are some terrible.
I love it when the plan comes together kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be a good catchphrase.
Yeah, but
'cause I use
that's
that
something
in real life.
real people say, I guess.
But I smoke cigars and wear a safari jacket, so I can pull it off.
I'm talking about one that is related so much with one character that when that character says it, the laugh track kicks in, everyone laughs.
Yeah, exactly.
But no one, like, don't be ridiculous. Or, what you talking about, Willis? Stuff that is not really
man.
funny, but whenever they say it, everyone, that's great.
On that note, if you ever get a chance to see Ricky Gervais's show Extras,
Yeah.
in the second season,
That's
that's,
right,
all
that's
it's about,
right.
because he gets a show, and the character he develops away from the way he wanted to do it ends up being like a catchphrase character, and he's
Yeah.
always going, "You having a laugh?" That's his catchphrase in the whole thing.
Oh,
So you having a laugh? You having a laugh?
I stopped watching
And
that
everyone
show
cracks up.
because
It's okay.
yeah, it was just one embarrassing situation after another. I don't like shows
Yeah,
where they just
it's
put
not
him
The
in
Office.
just a really embarrassing situation all the time.
The Office is much more clever, and in that show, it's exactly that. It's a Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of show, which I also don't like very much for the same reason.
All right, anybody else?
But in Extras,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I think of Wings. I think Wings jumped the shark a couple of times.
When?
I can think of there are two different.
Because
You
that show
could say
never
that
jumped the shark.
I'm trying to actually remember an individual episode of
There's-
Wings. There was something about
it
Wings that
actually
just
had-
blended together for me. I liked it.
Wings had 3 different occasions where they introduced a completely new character. The first time didn't jump the shark when they brought in Tony Shalhoub as Antonio, the taxi driver. He was funny. And then later on, when they start running out of stuff to do, I guess they run out of enough. They don't have enough females to go around for all the male leads, so they bring in Amy Yazbek as Helen, Helen's sister, and then that's just for the sake of having a new character.
Yeah.
And then finally, the final nail in the coffin is when Thomas Hayden Church left to get his own show on Fox.
Which lasted about 15
Whatever.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, which lasted only slightly less time than the final season with his replacement character. So I guess he got off at the right time, but got canceled at about the same time.
Do you remember the show that Tony Shalhoub did after Wings with Doogie Howser kid? What's his name?
Harris.
Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris, called Stark Raving Mad. Did you ever watch that show?
I've heard of that show. I never saw it.
It was actually a pretty good show.
I didn't even realize Tony Shalhoub was in it.
Yeah, Tony Shalhoub was like I think he
Shalhoub.
did like makeup for horror movies and stuff, and he was all the time
Shalhoub.
doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And Neil Patrick Harris was like this uptight pharmacist or something, if I remember the show correctly. But it was actually a pretty good show. It only lasted one season, but anyway, back to Wings.
Well, that's the way it happens.
The top
He did
vote,
well, and he got monked.
yeah. The top vote getter was when top vote getter. That was my southern accent for you. was when Lowell left, and they brought in the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the nail in the coffin because the show really was on its lowest legs anyway. And they brought in, I want to say the guy's name was Bill Healy, was the actor who replaced him.
That sounds right. But
he was a real funny guy.
Yeah.
Real funny comedian, this guy.
But you just can't follow that.
You can't replace a main character after that many years with a carbon copy character. I'm going to mention, to me, the strongest example of a show that didn't jump the shark. And this is pure quality of story and writing, which was Cheers.
Yeah.
When Shelley Long left Cheers, everyone said the show was over. And they did everything right. They brought in another character. They brought in another foil to do the same thing. But they made sure they didn't bring in someone who was intended to be just like her.
Yeah,
they found someone else. And they came up with a whole different kind of story for it. And they renewed that show.
It's like bringing Woody in too later on, but that worked out as well.
Yeah, they were able to successfully add in characters, which is something I guess that's very hard to do. I guess maybe because
they would try to bring in characters that fulfilled the same function without making them carbon copies. And they found talent like Woody Harrelson, who I don't like that much, but he was perfect in Cheers.
Yeah, same with Kirstie Alley. I thought she was great on Cheers. I haven't seen much else that she's done that I've liked, but
Jenny Craig.
But anyway, I'm looking at the website for Cheers, or the Jump the Shark website, and most people agree that it never jumped. 773 votes say that it never jumped. But
and a lot of opportunities it could have.
The next one is 532 votes say that when Rebecca came in and replaced Diane, that it jumped there, but I don't agree with that at all. I can't really think of
in a lot of ways. While I was watching that show back in those days, I actually enjoyed those episodes more.
Yeah,
because when they removed the purely romantic chemistry between the two main characters, I actually enjoyed it. Because actually, Cheers did what I think kills a show. They introduced two characters that were destined to get together, and they got them together. And the best thing that could have happened was when that ran its course, they just got rid of her instead of keeping her around.
Well, and I think most fans of the show would agree that, that Diane, in retrospect, that Diane was a very annoying character. And I think even the creators believe that.
I know.
Because
it was great, because when she got the worst, they got rid of her.
That's what I was going to say, is that I don't think that's a jump the shark moment. I think it's an improvement moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that show wouldn't have lasted another couple of years if she'd stayed on it. But getting rid of her gave them a chance to start over without having to start all over.
I think the creators
and another
even
thing Cheers
it.
was really good at is whenever they had a secondary character like Frasier Crane, who was just sort of peripheral, they were really good at sort of bringing him up and introducing him and making him sort of fall into that world. That sad world where he'd sort of be taken down a notch until he became one of the gang. And that really is how Frasier got to have his own show, because he was a nothing character when they introduced him, but they reworked him until he was one of the best characters on the show.
He was very much a fop when he first came in. He was just really
They were really good at doing that, of deconstructing those characters and making them more than they began, rather than exploring them till they petered out.
But what I was saying about Diane is I think even the creators kind of figured out that she was I think Shelley Long left because of a money dispute, but I think the creators realized that it was a good thing to let her go. And mainly because they've brought her back so many times and they make a joke out of her. Like in Frasier, she comes back, she comes to Seattle and meets Frasier again. And they kind of start to spark their romance again. But the reason why she's there is she wrote a play, and it turns out that the play is the story of Cheers. It all takes place in a Boston bar and all that, and
it's all about how everyone thinks she's
awesome. And it's like how everybody thinks she's such a wonderful writer and everything. When truth be told, she hasn't really come up with anything original at all. And so she got to be kind of just a joke in the whole canon of the Cheers Frasier storyline. I really liked in Cheers how
Shelley Long's the one that wrote those votes in
Probably.
Over and over again. Just vote, 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 vote.
Yeah, where's she been since?
Yeah,
man?
really.
She dropped off the face of
I
the
know.
earth.
Didn't you guys see Outrageous Fortune? Come on, Troop Beverly Hills.
Oh, man.
It's not like I was doing nothing. You never saw Hello Again?
How much more do we have? How many? What we got?
I'm out.
Oh, all right. Well, there you have it.
Yeah. I guess that's about it. I haven't really thought of any others. I mean, of course, there's a lot of them.
Is there a list on the website of like the most
Well, what's
famous?
the name of the
ones?
website? Maybe we could just let people know what the name of the website is.
The website is
and they can go check it out.
www.jumptheshark.com. And
Well, that's easy enough to remember, folks.
I need to look up Miami Vice while I'm here, though, since that
You said that Miami Vice had a specific Jump the Shark
it
moment.
did. And in my opinion, it was when they blew up his car.
Not the Testarossa.
The show is over.
No.
There was an episode, not the Testarossa. See, now in the first 3 seasons, I believe,
Oh, like he had that black Ferrari before that, didn't
Sonny
he?
Crockett drove a Ferrari Daytona Spider, which wasn't a
That's
real
right.
Ferrari Daytona Spider. It was a Corvette made to look like one.
Yeah, that's that black
And
one.
when the show started picking up, the folks at Ferrari offered him a real car, and so in order to get rid of the other one, they wrote into the script where Jeff Fahey, who was playing an arms dealer,
Also a Johnny Drama, by the way. I love Jeff Fahey.
blows up the car with a Stinger missile.
Awesome. Jeff Fahey is also in Planet Terror. Jeff Fahey is the barbecue guy in Planet Terror.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, see,
And consequently plays a role in the Machete trailer.
I'm gonna.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
gonna have
telling
to
you,
go
that
see
trailer,
one.
man. Wouldn't you see that movie if it came out?
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you.
I love when he whips his jacket open and it's got 100 knives in it.
Well, just the
Awesome.
fact they cut to the thing with him, like in the waterfall or whatever, with the 2 topless ladies, and they even look like 70s.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
it's kind of
Kinda
weird how
full-figured women.
there is an aesthetic to women's bodies from one generation to another. They actually look like 70s ladies naked. So they really went out of their way in the auditioning. They left no stone unturned.
Not quite fit, stone, rock hard body women be the.
That's
yeah.
what I mean.
Just a little more
Yeah, a
curvaceous.
little softer.
Yeah.
They're still
Softer
fit.
and paler of features.
But yes, 50,
And not quite as
57 votes for
Big.
the blowing up of the car. The top vote getter for Miami Vice is when he marries Sheena Easton.
Sheena Easton. Is the assassination of Sheena Easton on the list?
Oh, let me see. It's not in the top 5, but let me scroll down here. 53 votes for when Crockett gets amnesia.
Well, there you go.
I'm
Amnesia's
gonna
a good
say
one.
except unless it happens because they usually only last for an episode, but that's a pretty lame moment for any show.
Yeah, that's soap opera right there.
Apparently, they did have an alien episode. I don't remember that one. I think it might have been the one
Oh
with
my
James.
God.
Might have been the one with James Brown in it.
Whoa.
They had an alien episode.
I didn't know that.
Well, I would say check out the Jump the Shark. I think we've covered it well enough.
That actually sounds like a cool site to look at if you ever get bored. Kind of like Snopes is just kind of interesting when you're bored at work and you can't look up porn or anything. So you just jumptheshark.com. Sounds like a lot of fun.
On your way to tv8mydinner.com.
Maybe go and make some votes. I wonder do they have a podcast version? Can people vote for where we jumped the shark? I wonder which episode. I'm going to go ahead and solicit this from our 13 fans.
I think
feedback at tv8mydinner.com. Let me know when you think we jumped the shark, or if we haven't yet. That would be great.
When you can already tell where we will.
Yeah, when you guys do the Star Wars episode.
It's obvious you guys are going to do a Star Wars episode.
And that's where it's going to jump.
That should be your finale.
I see a shark in the distance, and it looks like a stormtrooper.
Yeah, really. That's the one to avoid. That's our X-Files, the alien invasion. We keep hinting at it, but we won't do it.
Actually, next week is going to be a very special TV8 My Dinner where I wrestle a live bear.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was going to say that
and Ted
I have
McGinley
a teen pregnancy.
guest stars. So.
I guess in all fairness, though, you have to have set a certain standard of quality in order to qualify for a shark jump. So we're probably free from any worries.
That's why we're safe. You have to have peaked as a show. If you were never good, you can't jump the shark. And if you have only been on for like a year, you can't jump the shark.
If you don't have any credibility to lose.
You have to.
But it'd be fun. It'd be fun for you guys. This is a good exercise, and you guys out there being creative, our fans. So just let us know.
This is a good way to see if anyone's listening.
Yeah. I'm curious. Feedback at tv8mydinner.com.
Feedback at tv8mydinner.com.
Also, while you're at it, check out tv8mydinner.com. When you're out looking at
tv8mydinner.com is where you can see episodes. You can see us at myspace.com/tv8mydinner if you want to become the friends of TV8mydinner.
Yeah, we need friends.
We're also there.
Check out gregstarks.com. You can be his friend too.
Yeah, I need friends too.
You can be friend to Greg also.
Hey, check out Bell's Wake on MySpace. Join them. You can be friends with everything we do. I think Dark Crazy has a MySpace too,
doesn't friends. What a great...
Please, God.
At the very end of a show.
Please, we desperately need friends. Listen to how much TV these guys watch. We need friends.
I insist that you love me.
All right. My name's Brooks.
I'm Sean.
I'm Greg. Next week,
and
Live
we
Bear.
will see you. Yes, don't forget, Live Bear.
A very
next
special
week.
episode of TV Ate My Dinner.
Greg loses an arm to a live bear.
Ted McGinley guest stars.
Duh.